So we're going to dive right in and start talking about Zipforms. So the first thing we're going to talk about is today's agenda. We're going to log into Zipforms Plus. Now it's known as Lone Wolf Transaction Zipform Edition. There's before it was called Zipforms Plus, the online version, and Zipforms Standard, the desktop version. The desktop version will eventually going away, and it'll just be an online version. So that's the work. So for any of you that are using Zipforms Standard, you may want to start looking at going on to the Lone Wolf Zipform Edition, the online version, because the great majority of the topics that we cover and the great majority of the materials that we provide on our website of learning how to use Zipforms is based on the online version. We're also going to teach you how to just do a basic transactions. We're not going to give you 80 pages of documents. It's just going to keep it very simple. I want you to understand the logic of how to use the software. Your real life situation is going to differ from what we're going to present to you in this class. But I want you just to understand just the basics so that way you can take that in the future with you when you help out your client. We're going to also do submit for signatures, show you how the process goes. And our next class, we're going to show you how to use Digital Ink 2.0 and DocuSign, two different signing services. I'll discuss that more in depth in the next class. We're also going to create and use templates. If you've never heard what a template is, stay tuned. I'm going to give you some more information about that. And I'm going to use additional tools that you should be aware of when using Zipforms. So the first thing is, for our users that have never created a username and password, great. We're going to go over that right now. What I am going to tell you right now is that I may talk a little bit fast because I had 1 cup of coffee and 1 hot tea. So I'm a little caffeinated, but I will keep it down to a little bit so that we can be able to understand what I'm saying. If you fall behind, that's quite all right, because recording this for you so that way you can refer to it in the future. If you fall behind, that's okay. Enjoy the show, take notes, and that way you can be able to watch the video later on. I think we're going to present it to you probably tomorrow, and that way you can be able to learn. That's how I learned. I watched Anthony's videos time and time and time again. And even in my sleep, I was listening to his voice. So that way I could be able to understand Zipforms, because I want you to be able to do this with your eyes closed and even in your sleep. Because ultimately your client's going to be depending on you to provide them guidance when they go through this transaction and this whole process. So the first step, we want to go to car.org. You don't want to go into Zipform's website, ZipLogic. So we go to car.org, the California Association of Realtors. You want to, normally I would say log in with your username and password that you created, but if this is your first time, click where it says register. So go ahead and click register. You're going to enter your NRDS ID number. It's your National Realtor Database System ID number. Whew, that's a mouthful to say. It's just follow our lead. We call it your NERDS ID number. Yeah, you might giggle, it's NERDS, but it's just so much easier to say NERDS ID number. It's a 9-digit number that's been assigned to you by the association. So this special number, if you don't know what it is, contact our association. We can be able to look it up for you. And of course, in the second field is going to be your last name. Enter those two things in and you're going to click submit. And later on, eventually you may get a card, membership card from the National Association of Realtors as well. So signing for Zipforms. So the first step is step 2, and there's 4 steps in all. CAR has to verify who this person is that's signing up. So you're going to input the information. You're going to actually read the information there, and it's going to email you a code. Now, this code, the email address, is going to be the one that you provided to the association. If you've changed the email since then, you want to notify us to update your profile and to contact CAR to have it in their system. So that way you can be able to get codes every time you need to correspond back and forth with CAR. So once again, if the email has changed, notify us in writing and we can be able to make that change happen. If you're not sure, contact us. We're open typically 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. So the next step, step 3, is once the agent has received that verification email, they have to input the verification code. And click continue. And now this is where the magic begins. You create the username, you create the password. The username can be your MLS ID if you wish. It could be something that you have memorized with other websites. The password, try to make it a little bit more complex because this gives you the ability to log in and do log in to do transactions and help out your clients. You don't want to make it easier for someone to hack your account to be able to send documents to someone that they're not supposed to get. And then you complete all the information, click where it says I have read and agreed to the end user license agreement, and click continue. Sometimes you'll hear people say the EULA agreement. So now you just sign in, log in with your username, log in with your password that you created, and click sign in. After you've done so, you've done the process of creating a username and creating a password. These are considered your CAR credentials. Once you use those CAR credentials, now you can be opening up a screen that says click continue to transaction. So you click where it says there, the golden ticket, and that's it. You've logged into your Zipform account. This first screen, we're going to talk about the dashboard. The screen, some of the features have changed a little bit, and this tells you what your productivity is. We're going to focus more on the transactions today, but let's get out of this altogether. This is going to be reference material for you, but let's go back into slide number 3, I believe, because I want to make sure that we're getting the most out of this webinar. So we've already talked about logging into Zipform Plus, Lone Wolf Transaction Zipform Edition. We are now going to create a transaction. So let me show you how to do that. It's going to be a basic transaction. It's not going to be 80-page document of transactions. It's just going to be just to teach you how to use the software, and your real life situation is going to differ because ultimately your client has to sign more disclosures and other documents necessary to take care of them. So, but I'm just teaching you the software of Zipforms. So I'm going to go into Zipforms, and here we are. This is my screen. This is what it looks like. And see transactions over here. Now, over here, you should probably have nothing. These are just some of the ones I've practiced with in the past. But we're going to start with the brand new transaction. But before I click that button, stop. I want to make sure the information is correct for my profile. So I click over there, it says me. So I click me. I can add an image there. So if you have an image of yourself, you can always add it in if you want to. But I'm going to focus on profile and settings. So I click profile and settings. So the first thing I want to make sure is the information I have here under me is correct. Is my name correct? Is my email address correct? My contact phone number, etc. My license number, okay, that's not my real license number, but you would input your information there. Another thing I want you to look at is the email signature. By default, this does not appear. I had to create this from scratch. So I want you to input this. You could change a different font size, make sure you're not going to get in trouble over the different font size. And that can also be verified with the California Association of Realtors Legal Hotline. But input this information in here because any transaction that you're going to send out, whether it's going to be to a client or another agent, it's going to show this information. Make it professional because ultimately you represent your client and you represent your team. So that is about me. You can go through all of these. I'm just going to show you just a few of these. For example, offices. If the office information has changed, you've already sent us a documentation to update the information. Please go ahead and update the information here. This does not happen automatically. So you want to be able to go through this and update the office information. So jumping over to here, settings. Today we're going to be working with Digital Ink 2.0. There are 3 different signing options, but this one, Digital Ink 1.0, is going to go away. It's one of the first ones that we had for some time, but now Lone Wolf is using this one. So eventually this will go away, so I'm not going to talk about that one, but we will talk about DocuSign. DocuSign is a paid service. You can be able to use DocuSign if you already have an account. I'm going to show you in the next class some of the similarities, some of the differences, and we'll talk more in depth about that. Also, you can change what is going to be your default landing page. So for me, I'm going to use the transaction list. I want to focus on my transactions immediately as soon as I open up my Zipforms account. Yes, you can also change that if you wanted to. This one, this is the crazy thing for me. It's crazy because the time interval for transaction autosave. For whatever reason, by default, it has it turned off. Now, for some of us that have been using computers since last century, we've gone through situations where we typed in a lot of information and then all of a sudden a power outage or the computer shut down for some reason, and then everything we typed in, it disappeared. Now, with this feature, you can have it set where it auto saves. Now you can have it auto save for every 5 minutes, 15, 20, whatever you want. I'm just having it by 5 minutes. Some people are comfortable with 15 minutes, whatever. I recommend that you choose one of these so that way it automatically saves it. So whatever, like for example, for me, the way I set it up, if we have a power outage, I hope not, I will only lose the last 5 minutes of whatever I've typed in. And that's it. So before that, everything else will be saved. So if you're typing in a whole contract, you want to make sure that, or input a listing, you want to make sure that information that you have the time interval turned on. And just for fun, I put down here mortgage calculator default interest rate. I put it as 2.49. You can change it to 2.50, whatever the market's at. So that way there's a calculator that you can be able to use. Any changes that you make here, you want to click save. Oh, by the way, make sure you're in the right time zone, because if you're working with a client here in California, you want to make sure that's showing the appropriate time when you do your digital signatures, because otherwise it'll show the wrong time. You can go through the rest of these. So we're going to go ahead and go back and go into transactions, because I want to create a transaction. That's what we're here for. So we're going to create a new transaction. See, transaction, click new. In this practice session, I'm just going to choose a new purchase or offer. So I'm going to choose this one, and there's different choices you could choose from, but this one we're going to just practice. We're practicing putting out an offer. I think, oh, I did not. Let me go ahead and put in a name. So let's go with, I don't know, let's see now. Home for client. Home for client. Now there's different choices in the property. So we're going to choose residential. If you're working with a client that's looking at industrial or condos, etc., you can put that in here. It's an active listing. The listing already exists in MLS, so we're going to choose that. Templates, we'll talk about that in a moment. Comments, you could do that later. But I want to show you MLS Connect quickly because I want to save time and energy. MLS Connect taps into your MLS account. You have to tie those together. But once it's tied in, it will automatically pull the information straight from MLS. So what I'm going to input there is a listing ID, and I forgot what it was already. Oh no. So I'm going to go into MLS and recent searches and pull that one out. There we go. DW20231. Oh, come on. There we go. Okay, I chose this one because it has a pretty entrance or has a pretty image. I was like, oh, that's a nice one. It looks so relaxing to me. So it's a listing in La Habra. So we're going to choose that one. And I'm going to minimize that. I'm going to put this one in here. And you're going to see, I'm going to include the photo. You don't have to do this, but I choose to do so. And click find. Now, this system is going to pull the information right from MLS and put it into our contracts within Zipforms. So you see here, here's the address, and use that listing. I scroll down and click save. Now with the power of the internet, it's pulling up that information. So you see here, it gives me the address, gives me the lot number, the MLS ID. It gives me a lot of other information here that you would have to go through different websites to pull that information in. So, and you can go ahead and fill this out all you want to if you wanted to, but I'm just going to speed up. Now we're going to look at parties. Now, since I'm focusing on buyers, I don't need to notify the agent, so I'm just going to remove her out of the way. You, on the other hand, are going to be in this situation representing a buyer. So we click buyer one. Now you can input the information in there, the name and all that information, all the contact information. If you're dealing with a trust, you would put the name of the trust up there, and then the person signing on behalf of the trust would be right there. But I'm going to cheat because I already have an address book. So I'm going to input the information from the address book and choose Charlene Client. See, Charlene's information, choose my buyer, and I click Save. I don't have to fill out this information because Charlene is an individual, not an entity. If she was an entity, then I'd put in the contact, the person that's going to be signing on behalf of the entity, like it's a trust, for example. I'm now going to click Save. There's my buyer. So we went from summary to parties. Now we go to documents. This is blank with the exception of archive. So if you need to save any documents to archive, you can be able to do so. But over here, this is where all the forms are going to be at. So we click all forms. Now by default, you're going to see this library of the California Association of Realtors. Now there's a number of different libraries. So for example, if we go down here, there's a library for Orange County Realtors. This is specific to us. So if you wanted to throw in an Orange County local area disclosure, you just simply click it. There you go. If you wanted to say, get some information about it, you can print a sample, you can print out a blank, you could print a preview, you can close it. So that's
And
an example
Leo,
of it. Yes,
just out
please.
of curiosity, where would an agent get the coming soon form or the basic form of seller's instruction to input a listing as a coming soon? What library would they look at for that?
I believe that would be found in CRMLS 1. So we'll take a look at that, and there's nothing. Oh, there's nothing in there. Oops, let's go back in. Oh, wait. Playing with the computer. Seller instructions to play into CRMLS coming soon. There it is. So I click that, and it's right there. If you're curious of what it is, let's just open up, because honestly, this is the first time I'm looking at it. There we go. So quality reading here. And
Now,
of
this is
course,
to go in conjunction with your residential listing agreement, just so you guys know. This is the form that basically states that the seller is instructing you as the listing agent to put the listing into coming soon status, which we can talk about maybe a little bit later or in a different class when we talk about the MLS rules and regulations. But just in case some of you here attending today are listing agents and your seller is not ready to show the property just yet, but they want you to advertise the property, this is the form you need in order to put that listing into the MLS as coming soon. So, and then Leah, where would you find the other contracts for your purchase?
so we go back and then we click all forms. And I'm going to go back and choose my library. Now you can choose all if you wanted to, or I can just simply choose the library. By default, it's the California Association of Realtors. So if we were going to say do a cover sheet, the cover sheet would be able to, you input the information in the cover sheet and it transfers all that information over to all the other documents. The residential purchase agreement, you probably want to use that. And there's probably a number of different forms that you want to use, but you have an idea what it looks like. So just for practicing purposes, these are the forms we chose. If you have chosen this one by mistake, you can always click the drop-down arrow. Let me show that again. Drop-down arrow, click delete, or you can also click this box here, and then also click delete, I believe. Let me move that away. There it is, delete. So there's different ways to delete a document that was put in by accident. There we go. If you're wanting to add a document that is not in our system, we can also do that, add a doc. And what does that mean? Now, sometimes your broker is going to ask you saying, Leo, I need this form included with every purchase offer, every purchase offer. This was put together by our legal department, so I need you to put this in there. So if it's in any one of these categories, you could choose it. But let's say I need to browse my computer because on my computer, so I'm going to do that. And I look for my zip form related ones. And we're going to do listing form B. This is just a practice. This is a fictitious document we're putting in there. And we click OK. See? So you can add documents and get them prepared for setting up for signatures. So once again, we went through all forms. We went through the process of choosing whatever forms we wanted and clicking it. So for example, if I just click, I don't know, best practices, bed bugs, you can continue on. You get the idea. Just click and it automatically adds it. If you have something that was added by mistake, you click the drop down, click delete, so on. So what we just did is we created a transaction. How do I know that? Because if I click back to list and I go ahead and click refresh, what's going to happen to the screen is going to give me an error message right in the middle of my class. That's okay. You know what? Power of the internet. So it's okay. I'm going to go back in and log back in. Sometimes problems happen, even to the best of us. I'm going to log back in and I'll show you what it says. I'll show you our transaction that we just created just a moment ago. So please be patient as we go in. It's going to default to the transactions. And if I scroll down just a little bit, you'll see right here, home for client. Now, if I open it up, you are now going to see the information we pulled up from CRMLS, the different parties, Charlene, and all the documents that we put together. And that's it. This is what we've done. Our goal was to create a transaction. We just did it. That's it. That's as easy as it can be. Now, of course, your real life situation is like, what forms do I need in a given situation? You want to consult with your broker, or you can consult with the CR legal hotline. I and Anthony, we cannot advise you what forms you need in a given situation. We're not professionally trained to answer those type of questions, but we can show you how to use the software. Any questions with this?
Let's see here. Mom Bell asks, now that I saw the system kick Leo out and him having to go through the validation process, I wanted to ask if there's a way that makes this less frequent and the process to have less steps. It's really quite cumbersome. Thanks.
Because software is made by humans, unfortunately, sometimes it will boot you out. So unfortunately, just like with anything, any other software you've used, sometimes you have to log back in to be able to do it. So it's unfortunate that we had to experience this, but at least you know that it is something that can happen even to the best of us. But typically it does not happen. So,
And Mabel, you know, it also sometimes depends on your web browser. Like as an example, Leo, I think, is using Google Chrome.
yes.
If you're a Mac user, sometimes you get more problems using, say, Safari or Internet Explorer or Mozilla Firefox. I find personally that you have less hiccups using Google Chrome than you do with the other web browsers. But um, like me, right now I'm on my Mac, and when I do have sometimes issues with Google Chrome, I'll pop over to Safari, which all of a sudden now the system works with no hiccups. And then the very next day, I may have problems with Safari, and I'm swinging right back to Google Chrome. So, if you can swing it, I would probably have both web browsers or both types of web browsers on your computer available, just in case. Even though I personally like Google Chrome a lot better, and it seems to be a more stable search engine internet browser feature, um, then yeah, I would have at least both ready, because if you do experience problems with one, try out the other and see if you get the same problems, and you'll be probably pleasantly surprised that you won't. So anyway, yeah, that's our advice to you.
Yeah, and if you're a Windows user like myself, then you may want to stick with Google Chrome and try Edge. See
Yeah,
if Edge will be fine. Edge is the replacement for Internet Explorer.
exactly. Sorry,
Internet Explorer is going bye-bye.
my brain went blank on the new version of Explorer.
That's okay. It's
And
okay.
you're welcome, Mabel.
We're going to submit for signatures. Now, I'm not going to show you the entire process of going all the way through and seeing what people will see on the other side. That will be for the next class. But I will show you what it looks like just to send out a document. So we're going to send out, for example, the Orange County local area disclosure. It's a very simple document. It's not multiple pages like the residential purchase agreement. So we're going to choose e-sign for electronic signatures. There's no documents here. We're going to click a new session. So we click new, choose Orange County. And we're using Digital Ink 2.0. You could change this to whatever packet name you want to, but for this session, I'm just going to leave it as is.
And by the way, everybody can practice this with Digital Ink just because it is your free member benefit. It does allow you unlimited signatures for unlimited documents for unlimited transactions. So one thing that definitely we both encourage you to do is make a test transaction or make a transaction and call it test so that you can test out some of these features and just know that you can digitally sign stuff. Now, if you Leo, by any chance, did you make sure that there was a signer's name and a property address on this?
Yes, because what I did is I pulled the information right from MLS using MLS Connect. And I also had an email address on file for my client, because if my client doesn't have an email address, if they don't have a computer, we can't go any further. We have to print it out the documents and have it delivered to them. But in this session, we're assuming they have access to an email address and a computer.
Awesome.
All right, we're going to do the next step and click next. So I've changed the name to Test for Client. You can do the same thing too. And we're going to choose our one buyer, Charlene Client. This is the email address I put on file for her. And over here, you're going to see that there is a cybersecurity option. Now, in the past, it was $5 to have multiple signatures to do the transaction, which would allow a two-factor authentication, meaning our client, Charlene client, would actually have to get a text message.
And
then,
sorry, Leo, we got two extra questions here. One from Millicent. Sorry if I'm messing that up, Miss Lim. She asked, where can I watch the replay of this session? Young lady, we are going to email you a copy of the webinar. So you will get an email copy of this training, if not today, early tomorrow. And then Joan Hill asks, can I move documents if I have them not in the order they should be?
yes, we can. Let me do the signing session real quick, and I'll go back to showing the change in order for you. So let me do that. Any other questions regarding before we go on?
I don't see any popping up.
Okay. So I have this set up for electronic signature. And if there are any mistakes, like let's say I put in the wrong email address, this gives me an option to fix it. But yeah, I put it in correctly. Knock on wood. And then also this is the time zone. If I need to change the time zone, I can do so. But I'm going to click next. Now this takes a decent amount of time for it to go pull up, and here it is. I pay for the high-speed internet at home, so it does pull up quite quickly, and it gives you the form here. So it's a local area disclosure. So I have the address on top. This is the field that the client has to initial here and initial there, etc. You get the idea. You have initial, and then also at the very bottom they sign. If there's anything that I need to add, I can be able to add it. In our next class, we'll show you how to do that. But assuming that everything is here and it's complete, well then we're just kind of done. We click next. Now you can customize it, but in this case, we're just going to use the default email that comes from Digital Ink 2.0 and click send invitations. And now it's finalizing it and sending it out to the client, and that's it. So that's how you send a client documents for signature. Our next class will go in more depth about it. But let's go back. Let's go back and take a look at how to rearrange our documents. Oh, by the way, there we go. There's our digital signing process right there. So we go into documents. And I have to also say that some things just irk me when it's out of organization. So like, for example, I like this over here. Well, come on. I like this over here. The residential purchase agreement to me should be over here. Best practices should be there. Listing agreement could be there. So that's how you do it. And when you're done moving things around, if you wanted to move that there, you can. You click done. There you go. Cover sheet, residential purchase agreement, local area disclosures. Because sometimes you're just adding forms, you're just pulling forms into from the corner over there, you're just adding forms, and then all of a sudden you go, wow, looks like a mess of forms. Well, now you can organize and put it in an area that's easier to understand and easier to share with your client. You'll get to a pattern where you can be able to do this on a regular basis. And that's when you want to use a template. We'll talk about that in a moment. So we click the button that says organize, and it says done organizing. We're not done yet. So if I wanted to move best practices guideline all the way over here, I can do so and release it. So drag and drop. There we go. Local area disclosures, drag and drop. Listing agreement form B, drag and drop. And then when I'm done, I click done organizing. And that's it. For a number of you who, when you start initially using it, you won't do the organizing feature, but someone like me, I needs to be organized. It needs to be in a certain way. So you'll develop your own style. Okay. So the next thing is going back to our agenda. So we create a transaction, we submit it for signatures. Now let's create and use a template. So template. So let's help you with the understanding of template. Templates are found right next to transactions over here. There we go, it's easy to see it. So I click templates. Template is, as we see in the process that we create a transaction, you're going to notice a pattern of what forms you need on a regular basis. Perhaps you need a cover sheet every time you do an offer. Perhaps you need the residential purchase agreement. Perhaps you need the Orange County disclosure form. So I created one just a moment ago, a template, and we're going to rebuild it from scratch. So this is a template, cover sheet, residential purchase agreement, Orange County area disclosure. That's what a template looks like. This is going to save time and energy because when you do a transaction, instead of pulling in all the forms that you need, it's just easier to say is just apply the template, and all those forms will automatically be put in your transaction. That's going to save a lot of time and energy. So that way you can focus on taking care of a client more so than before. So let's create a transaction. Excuse me, let's create a template. So I'm creating a template. Once again, we're going to do the new purchase or offer, but you can do any one of those. And we're going to keep it a general name. So we're just going to call it purchase offer. All right. It's going to, in this category, it's going to be residential. Your situation is going to be different, but we're going to do residential. And then this gives me choice. I can automatically apply this template to every single transaction. So if every single transaction needs this type of template, then I'm going to put it in there. But that's not the case for me. If I want to automatically apply this template to every purchase residential new transaction, I could do it this way too. But I feel more comfortable letting me have the control of doing it, of saying click if I want to add a template and not add a template. So I'm going to say, do not automatically apply this template to new transactions. And you can add multiple templates on top of other templates. But in this practice session, we're only going to be looking at creating one template. So there we go. I click save. Here we are. We're going to have to now add forms and put it in here. So all forms. Now, once again, this is for not specific transactions. This is for general transactions that we're going to have in the future. So we go to all forms. And then we look at, I'm going to throw in a cover sheet because I like the cover sheet. I'll show you the cover sheet in just a moment. I'm going to throw in the residential purchase agreement. Oh, what else do we need? Anthony, throw out a form for me, please. What form do we need in a given situation when we have a purchase offer? Do we use the agent visual inspection? Should we throw that in there? I'm going to say yes. So I don't know if you're brand new, sometimes you don't know what the right form is. So you could start typing agent visual. Okay, so there we go. So it pulled up these choices. Now in this example, agent visual inspection, 1, 2, 3, and 4 is the number of times you should go out. So just, it's going to be, we're going to always go with number 1. So backing up, see, so if you know the form name, you can always add it on there. So for example, addendum, see? Or if I know the form name is ADN, I think. Oh, nope. ADM. There we go. So if you know the form name, you could be able to add it on there. And how do I know that's the form name? Because it shows right there, ADM-1. So if you need to add that on there, you could be able to do so. So if these were the forms that are going to be used for my purchases in the future, then I'm going to leave these here. If I made a mistake that says, I did not want the addendum, then I can go and click this drop down arrow and click delete. Let me do it again. Drop down arrow and click delete. If I wanted to say, what is that AVID form, that agent visual inspection form? Let me get a preview of it. Well, yeah, you can take a look at it. Oh, normally you could. Oh, because it's looking for a valid property address. Oh, I forget. So sometimes you can, sometimes you cannot. So in this session, we have these here: cover sheet, residential purchase agreement, agent visual inspection. Cover sheet looks like this. So you put in the buyer's name, the information here. This will transfer over to all the future forms. There's a buyer 2, etc. If you're working with a seller, the property information would be here. That would be transferred over to all the new information. See, you just put in all this basic information. It'll be transferred all to all the future forms that you need. This is creating a template. Now, of course, your template is going to be more sophisticated than this one. You may have a template for probates, for short sales. You may have templates for working in San Francisco or for Orange County. There's different templates you'll be creating. So maybe working with mobile homes, new builders. So you'll create all kinds of new templates. So here we go, purchase offer. So how
And Leo,
yes.
we have a question from Tuan 2. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. And Tuan asks, are you able to tell us what should be in a purchase template?
No.
Generally not. I mean, obviously the main contract of the residential purchase agreement, or RPA, should be in your purchase template. And we'd also both recommend the cover sheet should be in your purchase template. But as for other specific forms, I would definitely ask your broker or office manager on what would be required for your files. So depending on your brokerage, most of you all would definitely work at brokerages that give you a list of forms required for every purchase transaction or every listing transaction. And what we would both recommend is that you take that list and make those lists into templates. So that way you have at least a template for listing a property, a template for purchasing a property, and you don't need to have every form in that template right away. You could just go with your core set of forms, okay? And then, just to get the transaction started, and then you can have as many other templates to be able to apply those to a transaction. Now what I like templates for is just to get you started. So like to get that listing or to get that offer accepted, put in that bare minimum. So generally, both Leo and I agree that you're going to have at least anywhere from 2 to 3, in some cases 5 different templates, depending on your business. So you have a template for a listing or a seller. You have a template for a buyer or a purchase. You have a disclosure template. So if you're representing a seller, put all together your disclosure package. Okay. And then maybe you have 2 other templates for leases, like one for a tenant and one for a landlord. Okay. And then what you're going to do is you're going to be able to put in some generic information like your name, your company, and maybe some generic terms that you negotiate for 90% of your clients. And then that way, and then Leo's going to demonstrate this here in a second, you can then apply that template to a transaction. Now, Tuan also asks, other forms like the buyer's inspections, the California consumer, the fair housing, wire fraud. Just so you know, Twan, the residential purchase agreement has all those forms put together. This is why this or that RPA is about 18 pages long, because it already has the agency disclosure relationship. And Leo, can you bring up an RPA contract just so we
Sure.
can show Twan this? If you pull up that form or add that form to your transaction or even to a template, you're going to notice here that at the top of the form, you've already got the fair housing, you've got the AD, you've got the PRBS, you've got the main contract, you've got the wire fraud, and you've got the buyer inspection advisory. So right there, you've got in this one form, 5 forms in one. So this has all the basics to it. Now, if your broker requires other forms, like they have a specific company disclosure that they need you to have or whatever, then you want to talk to your broker about that. But this is the core set of forms already built into this RPA. So you really don't have to worry about too much outside of that. But for general transactions, this is your core form. As for other specific forms, that's something that your broker may tell you they require for their files. So always, have that or ask your broker about what is required for their files. Okay. Does that help answer your question, Twan? And sorry, Leo, I didn't mean to, be overly winded there.
No, it's fine. It's okay. We're helping out our fellow agents. So, and I know that we're at 11:33, and I'll quickly show you how to do a transaction with this template. So let me go and click New, do a purchase offer. We're going to input a Charlene client home. You could use whatever address. If it was you want to put in the address, you could put in the address. You could put in the city. You can. Um, and then I choose residential, and then I choose MLS Connect, and there it is. Good. Include the photo. Just going through this pretty quickly because we already showed you how to do this. And I'm going to use that particular listing. And then down here, my templates. So the one that we created just a moment ago was purchase offer. So we're going to choose that one and click save. And how do I know it worked? Let's go to documents, and you will see that the documents are there, the cover sheet, the residential purchase agreement, and the agent visual inspection. If you want to look at the cover sheet will have the information, should have had, there we go, has the information right over there, the address and so on. We want to put in, of course, more information in there, like who the buyer is, etc. But we can do that at a later time, escrow information, etc. So you see that information will transfer over to the other forms. So if you see I'm going to quickly go down to the RPA. I just want to show you that the information has already populated. See, Compass, Christina Kim's agent, and there's the address. So that's the information that's going to show up. So that's an idea of how we use templates to be able to save time. So instead of you clicking all forms and add the forms individually, you just apply that template. It'll save so much time and energy and make things easier for you. Any questions before I show you just a few tools so that way I can let you out? Because I know it's 11:35 and I apologize for running over the limit. If as you're putting in your questions, if you have any, there's a help feature right over here. So if you click help, you can see that there's a learning center where you can do a lot of searching for the information. There's an in-app guided help, and you can also send feedback directly to Lone Wolf. They can be able to get that information, or perhaps make the system better. So if you find things that can be improved, if there's some things that just are not exactly clear, you can be able to do so. And we'll take a look at it and see what they can be able to do. So any questions before I hit this big button that says transaction tools?
Yes, we've got Joan. Joan Hill ask, how do I add an additional buyer to the document? Do you mean, Joan, how do you add a third buyer to a document? She means a third buyer. So if you have 3 buyers or 4 buyers, how do you add them to a form? If you can.
So if I want to add buyer 3, see, let me go back to that. So here's my parties, and I scroll down a little bit, and I said buyer 3. And I put in the name. Oh, Pete Rose. Okay, for those of you that don't know, yeah, I'm a big fan of baseball when I was a kid. That's it. And hit click save. There we go. So I have 3 different individuals. Sparky Anderson, he was the manager for the Cincinnati Reds. Johnny Bench, he was the catcher for the Cincinnati Reds. And Pete Rose, he was the player for also coach, a manager for the Cincinnati Reds. So those are my 3 buyers. And you can be able to, I think there's an additional document that's going to be needed to add a third buyer. So because a lot of the forms that you'll notice only have spaces for 2 and not 3 buyers.
So
Buyer, that's it.
So yes, in this case, Joan, for typing purposes, only the buyer 1 and buyer 2 would appear on the forms, because that's all they allot for. So you'll need a separate form called the ASA, the Additional Signature Addendum, which will allow you to place buyer 3 or client 3, 4, and 5 on each of, or on that form. So if there are multiple signers, buyers, or sellers to a property, then this is the form you're going to need to add that extra buyer or seller or party to the transaction. Now, what's interesting about this, and again, Leo, I apologize for interrupting, and sorry for the dog in the background. Somebody just knocked on the door. Um, when it comes to digital signing, this form would allow signers 3, 4, and 5 to sign this document in lieu of signing the purchase agreement. So in those cases, where you have multiple signers, say multiple buyers for one property, because you have such a finite amount of space and it's hard to get that third and fourth party on the purchase agreement, as well as getting their signatures on those tiny little spots or in those initial areas, you're going to do this document instead to have buyer 3 and 4 or 5 sign this document and just acknowledge the purchase agreement. I hope that makes sense. Did that help answer your question?
And if you have any questions about how to use this particular form, do consult with your broker or the CAR legal hotline. They can best advise you on this form. Okay, let's touching transaction tools. Transaction tools, found underneath transactions. So I'm going to click it and there's different choices. Now clause manager, we're going to talk about in the last class of the day, but I wanted to point out mortgage calculator. Mortgage calculator is a great tool to take a look at because, well, it helps you communicate to your client whether or not they are going to be in a situation where they're going to be comfortable to be able to afford a loan. So if a loan is at, say, 600,000, we'll actually make it more realistic, 800,000, no commas, and the interest rate's 2.5, and the number of months will be 360 months. It'll calculate what the principal and interest will be, and that's the monthly rate, $3,160.97. You can input this information in, but we're going to skip that. But if you wanted to show it to the client, and it's going to start, say, in May, we can display the table and take a look at it. So as we take a look at it, we'll say, oh, principal's that amount, interest is this amount, payment would be that amount, and that's it. So there's the balance. So as it goes down, you'll see that this increases by $3.12. So yes, initially you pay more for interest than you do for principal, but over time that'll go all the way down to, with the power of the mouse that I have, I will show you that the total is, for an $800,000 loan, you're paying $337,960 $337,947.67 for this transaction. That's it if they get the interest rate at 2.6. Now, if their interest rate is not at 2.6, then let's say they're not at 2.5, and I'll show you a big difference. Let's say they're 4.5. That's what they qualify for, 4.5. And they can do only 480 months. Well, no, let's keep it simple, 360. Have it consistent. You will see that now the monthly payment's $4,053. Like, whoa, it jumped. And you want to say display the table. So that same loan of 800,000 initially, they're going to end up paying interest of not 300 and some thousand. It's going to be now $659,254.68. So, and you as an agent, you can be able to communicate to your client as you could say, this is based on the numbers. This is where you're probably more comfortable having a home payment at versus having a payment for this amount. Last thing you want to do is put your client in a situation where they're going to have a negative experience with you. You hopefully will have a good positive relationship with that client, so that way they could see you, 7 years down the road when they get a different home. So this is the mortgage calculator. The different tools, Forms Advisor and Forms Tutor. Forms Advisor helps you. It's a questionnaire, and based on those answers that you provide to them.
I'm sorry, Leo. Hold on one second.
Go ahead.
Joan asked, does it also calculate the taxes and insurance, that mortgage calculator?
There was a spot to put in taxes and home insurance. It doesn't. You have
It
to
doesn't
input that information.
automatically. Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to type those numbers in yourself.
Mhm.
But just remember that the mortgage calculator is all estimated. So you can estimate, well, if your taxes are this or that or the other. This is a great tool to help either sellers or buyer, or actually mostly buyers, understand what their payments are and what they could be saving. One thing that I like to use the mortgage calculator for, at least in my demos, is to show the power of the interest rate. If you notice, as Leo put in that 2.5 number for his mortgage, his payments were fairly affordable for that $800,000 property. But say the interest rates, seeing how now everybody's talking about interest rates going up, and that all of a sudden that interest rates jump up to say 3% or 3.5%. So at 2, it's at 3,100. But now all of a sudden, if tomorrow the government said, all right, tomorrow's interest rates are at 3.5, you've now increased their payments by $400 more per month, which ultimately increases their overall interest loan payment on that $800,000 property by almost $150,000. But ideally, what you were saving money before at today's current interest rates, if you wait and interest rates go up, you could price yourself right out of the market. So, this is a great way of getting those buyers off the fence to start making offers now while interest rates are great, versus later on when interest rates start going up, that their buying power doesn't diminish, because an $800,000 property now probably gets them a pretty decent home, versus tomorrow with interest rates going up and home prices going up, they've now bought less house, or they can't afford the same house that they could before because of interest. So you could use this as a marketing tool strategy to show the impact on interest, or of interest on someone's home payment. Anyway, sorry.
So we're going to tidy it up real quick because it's at 11:45. We're 15 minutes over, and I apologize for that. So we're going to just show you where the Forms Advisor is and Forms Tutor. Forms Advisor is actually found on the CAR website, and it's a questionnaire. There's a number of questions that will be asked of you, and based on your answers, it'll be like, we'll call it test. And based on your answers, it'll help determine what forms you need in a given situation. So you go through all the questions, you accept them, but make sure you answer these truthfully to the best of your abilities. You may not know all the answers, but at least you can go through them. And I'm just going to quickly show you. So this gives you a summary. Whoops, where'd it go, class? It gives you a summary, and then you click I accept. And now it calculates what forms you need in a given situation. So based on those forms, these are the ones that they recommend. They also have previously recommended forms. You can look at that. You can look at the summary again. But if you look here, there's a tutorial on how to use it. Not every form has a tutorial, but a lot of them will have a preview that you can take a look at it to give you more information. Well, mostly it does, but for whatever reason, that one did not. So sorry. So that's Forms Advisor. So it'll help you choose the right forms in a given situation. It helps to help you go to the next process of deciding whether or not I should use that form or not. And if you have more questions about it, you do want to consult with a Sierra Legal Hotline. That could best help you with that. In case you're wondering what the legal hotline is, let me get you that information. That's found over here. Yeah, that's Rainbow. That's a Rainbow I found at June Lake on the way up. We were heading over to Mammoth, and it was just, oh, beautiful. So I had to stop on the side of the road and take a look at that. So here's enough about my anecdotes. Here is the phone numbers. Contact CAR Supports, 213-739-8227. They can provide you assistance with the software if we're not available. You can also contact ZipLogix. That's their phone numbers. They're open Monday through Friday, 24 hours, but weekends 10 to 10 East Coast time. And that's their hours. And if you need legal hotline, that's their phone numbers, 213-739-8282. This will be included in the webinar that we're doing. So don't get upset that you're missing some of this. That's okay. It'll be in the webinar. You can refer to it later. Thank all of you for joining us today. And I do hope most of you will attend the next class because we're going to go in depth showing you how to use DocuSign, Digital Ink 2.0, showing you the similarities and some of the differences. All right, with that being said, you have yourself a great rest of the day.